Obviously, this week's parasha is a very important parasha. As the Kabbalists explain, this is the week, we call it the Shabbat of healing, but really it's the Shabbat of immortality. And of course, if a person is able to have even a small aspect of immortality, that's why a person is able to awaken healing on the Shabbat. And one of the most important reasons why that's true, why that tremendous light is revealed in the Shabbat, is because of the Nesirut Nefesh, the giving up of himself that Pinchas was willing to do in order to save lives, both physically and spiritually. And that's really the underlying light of the Shabbat. How can we bring ourselves to be more of the level of Nesirut Nefesh, to give up of ourselves, because that's really, as we'll see, not only the only way to connect to the Shabbat, to connect to the light of healing, to connect to the light of immortality, but really the only way we can become who we're meant to become, the only way we can achieve what we came to this world to achieve, is through a constant process of Nesirut Nefesh, a constant process of giving up of ourselves. But before we get to that point, which I want to expand upon, I want to talk about two aspects in the essence of Pinchas that enabled him to achieve that level of Nesirut Nefesh. Because Nesirut Nefesh, giving up of ourselves, and again there's endless degrees, doesn't just happen. It's built upon certain aspects of a person's change, transformation, spiritual growth that can then enable him or her to truly achieve Nesirut Nefesh. So the first, we know that after the action of Pinchas, Pinchas receives a blessing, a gift. The literal words in the Torah are Hineni noten lo et briti shalom. The Creator says, because of the actions of Pinchas, I am giving to him my covenant, some sort of promise, eternal promise, shalom. Literally the word is shalom, which is peace. But what is the secret of that blessing? We know it says, for instance, in the translation into Aramaic of Yonatan ben Uziel, that he at that moment became the heralder, the one who will announce and bring about the Gemara Tikkun, the end of the correction. He will live forever and be able, Pinchas, who became Eliyahu, to be that person who lives forever and announces and brings about the Gemara Tikkun. But what is the secret of the word shalom, which is the essence of the blessing given to Eliyahu Navi, Pinchas? It's also, not coincidentally, the last blessing in the Amidah. We know the most important connection we make 3 times a day is the Amidah. Throughout the Amidah, we ask for all different kinds of things. We ask for healing, we ask for wisdom, we ask for transformation, we ask for sustenance, we ask for all the important things. But what's the last blessing? Shalom, peace. And in that blessing, there's really the hint into what the true end blessing should be. It says in the Gemara, concerning all the animals, especially here we're talking about after the sin of Adam. We know, most of us know the story, the snake, the Nachash came to Adam and Eve, made them make a mistake. It says in the Gemara that the Creator is not like people. For a person, if you do something negative towards one person, he will cut you off, especially if it's an extremely negative action, he'll cut you off. But it says, BeOr shelo kemidat hakadosh baruch hu midat basar v'dam. The Creator's essence is not like most people's essence. Even though for most people, if somebody does something terrible against you, you cut them off, you no longer share with them, you no longer give them anything good. But for the Creator, even though kilelet hanachash, even though the snake did a terrible thing, he made all of humanity fall, nevertheless, wherever he goes to the roof, he can find food. He goes down to the ground, he finds his food. So although the snake was at the core of what caused humanity to fall, nevertheless, the snake still is supported, given sustenance by the Creator. So the Kabbalists ask, so what's the difference between the snake who receives all of his sustenance and maybe us who want to receive our sustenance, our light, our blessings from the Creator, but hopefully we're not on the same level of the snake who caused death and pain and suffering to all of humanity. So Rabbi Yitzchak Avarka says that the difference is that the snake, and really anybody who's on that level, whenever he or she asks for anything, the Creator says, this is what you want, I'll give it to you, but please get away from me. I don't want you to be near me. Most people, when we think about our spiritual connection, what we desire, I think most of us, there are things we want. I want this, I want that. But we never think about how we want to receive it. And there are two types of receiving. There's the receiving of the snake, which is, as the Kabbalists say, you want this, here, take it. But get away from me, the Creator says. I don't want you to be next to me. I don't want you to be in front of me. Then there is, as we say in the Amidah, in the blessing of Shalom, is Bachenu Avinu, give us the blessings, but BeOr Panecha. We want our blessings to be with the countenance, with the shining light of the Creator's face. Which means that our truest desire is not simply to receive this request, this blessing, this desire, but most importantly, really what's important to me is that the Creator is there and stays while He gives it to me and stays after He gives it to me. Most of us, I think, are mistaken in how we desire and how we want to receive. Most people, even those of us who are spiritual or aware of the spiritual system, you have to use these tools, you have to ask in this way, you have to use the tools in the way to manifest the blessings for you. But what is really the most important part of that? The most important part is let me remain connected to the Creator. Before I receive, while I receive, and after I receive. There's a verse, which is again one of the secrets of the Shabbat, BeOr pnei melech chaim. A person who receives, like the snake, I want this, the Creator gives it to me, okay, good, take and go, as the Kabbalists say. He can never connect to immortality, to life. He can never connect to the light of healing. And we have to ask ourselves that question on this Shabbat. What is, when I look at my spiritual work and when I look at my physical and spiritual desires, is it to receive it? Or is that secondary to maintaining that connection to the BeOr pnei melech chaim? I don't care so much if I receive or don't receive. The request is only as a way for me to put myself in front of the Creator, and I say, I want to remain in front of the Creator before, during the giving, and after. And that's the two types of receiving. Pinchas was of the desire, I don't really care what I receive. Yes, I'm going to ask. Pinchas asked for miracles. We know an endless amount of miracles occurred for Pinchas that allowed him to remain alive, but that was secondary to him. The most important request for Pinchas was whether I live through this or die through this, BeOr pnei melech chaim. Whatever blessing I receive, I want to make sure that I maintain my connection and stand before the light of the Creator, the countenance of the light of the face of the Creator always. And that's why, what does it mean, I give him a promise forever? The Creator says to him, and it's interesting, without going to the details, if we know the story of Eliyahu, there were times that he, let's say, caused anger from the Creator. All kinds of things happened in the life of Pinchas and Eliyahu, ups and downs. But one thing never changed. The Creator was always with him. Whether when in the stories in the prophets, when Eliyahu Navi got angry at the Israelites and the Creator then had made him walk for days, the Creator was always with him. So, Hineni noten lo et briti shalom, when the Creator promises Pinchas, I'm giving to you the blessing, my promise, that no matter what you ask for, no matter what you receive, no matter what you do, no matter how high you go, or no matter how low you go, because your most important desire is to be in front of me, to be connected to the light of the Creator, regardless of receiving or not receiving, therefore I promise you, you'll always be with me. And therefore, one of the first gifts and understandings, there's a story of Rabbi Simcha ben Pashischa who said, it's a statement. He says, when I get to the next world, after I leave this physical world, and he says, and he uses the word, and I see an idiot with 13 carriagefuls of olam haba, of blessings and light, he says, but if I see that it was given to him and he was sent away from the BeOr pnei melech chaim, from the face of the Creator, I'm going to laugh at him and never desire that. I'd rather be in the next world, he says, with nothing but in front of the Creator than with everything and away from the light of the Creator. And that's, again, as we talk about and try to understand what was unique about Pinchas and why did he merit the Briti Shalom, the promise that no matter what, the Creator will be with him always. And why, as again, as Yonatan ben Uziel says, he was promised then to live forever. The only way you can, and again, it's one of these things. It might not be where many people are, right? I have a desire. I want this or I want that. I'll ask the Creator, and once He gives it to me, once I receive this blessing, I'm gone. The Creator is really kicking you out, but you're also gone because you don't really care to stay there. If a person doesn't understand, and this is why, again, as we said in the Amidah, in the most important connection to make 3 times a day, we ask for healing, we ask for sustenance, we ask for wisdom, we ask for everything. But at the end, and again, you can say the words and not really feel them or mean them, and you can say the words and really understand them. I don't want any of the things I just asked for. I don't want any of the blessings that I just asked for if it's not with your face shining to me always. During the request, after receiving what I requested, and after. That's because that's my singular most important request. And because Pinchas, right? Because when the action that Pinchas was doing, he knew could cause him death. His request was, I want BeOr Pnei Melech Chaim. I want to be with the light of the Creator, regardless of anything else that I receive or don't receive. And because of that, he received the blessing of eternal life. Spiritual connection can bring all kinds of things. It can bring blessings, it can bring all kinds of light into your life. But you have to ask yourself on this Shabbat, what kind of receiving do you want? Do you want the, here, take it and go, which is I think where most people are, satisfied. This is what I asked for, I did the spiritual work, I made the connections, I received my blessing, I'm fine to go away? Or no? My most important desire, my most important request, BeOr Pnei Melech Chaim. I want to be in the connection with the light of the Creator, regardless of receiving or not receiving, up and down. And because that was Pinchas's, Liau's most important desire, therefore he received again eternal life. Because any other receiving, any other spiritual work that is not based on that ultimate desire will not bring a person eternal life. And cannot bring a person, chas v'shalom, the light of healing and immortality that this Shabbat has. So therefore the first awakening and desire that we should have on the Shabbat is, I don't know where we were before now. Maybe we were on the level where as long as we receive whatever blessing we ask for, whatever we receive from the Creator, we're happy. No more. Now, after all the requests, we only have one request. BeOr Pnei Melech Chaim. We want, no matter what, light, blessings, gifts that we receive, we don't want to be given them and sent away. We want to have our singular uppermost desire, let me remain in front of the light of the Creator, no matter what. And that's the first understanding. The second, which is related to that, because it's unfortunate but true, that even those of us who are involved in our spiritual work, we get lost. We get lost. One way we get lost, as we just said, as we just learned, is that we start basing our spiritual work and connection on what we're receiving, rather than on the simple connection. BeOr Pnei Melech Chaim. The second, how do you know that your desire and therefore your work is true? How do you know that everything that you're doing of a spiritual nature is really coming from a true place? We know that, and there's many stories like this, people who externally, if you looked at them, and therefore often as we can look at ourselves, you see a very spiritual person, a very giving person, but it's not coming from a true place, and therefore, chas v'shalom, things eventually don't go right. How do you know, how can you be certain that your work, that your connection, that your desire is really coming from a true place? In the blessing that's given to Pinchas, it's the only place in the Torah, and the word shalom, which literally is translated as peace, there's a cut letter. There's a vav k'ti'ah. The vav in the word shalom is cut. Any other place in the Torah, if a letter is cut, it invalidates the entire Torah. This is the one place in the Torah where the vav, that letter, is actually needs to be cut. Without going into the details, it's actually a whole discussion by what it means. Some people say it's a shorter letter vav. Some people say it's cut towards the bottom. regardless of how specifically it is meant to be written, it is the singular place in the Torah where the Vav is cut. Usually, if you ask somebody, what would the obvious understanding of that there's something imperfect in the blessing being given to Pinchas. So they ask, if this is the place, again, Pinchas gives up of himself completely, why is the Vav cut? Why is the blessing, the promise being given to Moses, to Pinchas, seemingly imperfect? So to understand this, we know that there are other times in the Torah that there's changes in the usual writing of the Torah. We know that in the entire Torah there are no dots, no nikud, except in certain few places where dots appear above the letters. In regular writing, if you have vowels, you put them under or inside or to the side of letters. But in nikud, there's never nikud that goes literally on top. There's a few places in the Torah where that happens. One of the more famous places is when Yaakov meets his brother Esav, and it says about Esav, it says Vayishakehu, that Esav kissed Yaakov. There's a dot on top of the word Vayishakehu, and the Kabbalists explain why is there a dot, one of the few places in the Torah where there are points in the Torah. That dot on top of the word Vayishakehu signifies that the kiss, which is a literal reading of that word, was not true. That really, even while kissing his brother, Esav kissing Yaakov, he hated him and wanted to kill him. But it's a very strange thing, because if you read, the Torah doesn't lie, right? And if you simply read that word Vayishakeu, it means he gave him a kiss. And usually when you give a kiss, it's out of love. It's certainly not out of hatred. So what does the dot on top of the word Vayishakeu, and he kissed him, how does that tell us that this kiss was not real? The Kabbalists say something very simple. This is true about Esav, it's true about us. If you want to know what is the singular test, what is the single question that you can ask yourself to know whether what you're doing is coming from a true place or from a false place, the answer is, do you have a desire for it to be known? Do you have a desire for it to be known? If you love somebody from a true place, you don't want anybody else to know. If you are connected to the light of the Creator from a true place, you don't want anybody else to know. If you give from a true place, you don't want anybody else to know. If you have a desire for your action, for your love, for anything that you do to be known, it's not from a true place. The dot on top of the word Vayishakeu, when Esav kissed Yaakov, it was he wanted everybody to know how much he loved his brother. He wanted to show a public show of affection. Everybody see how much I love my brother. If you asked Esav, he might not even know whether in that moment he was feeling love or hatred. And if you asked him, he probably would have said, I love my brother. Look at him, look. Who else goes in front of hundreds or thousands of people and gives such an embrace and such a long kiss? This must be love. But the Kabbalists tell us, if Esav didn't know this, but if it was so important for Esav that everybody sees how much he loves his brother, it means he might be feeling love at that time, but it's not coming from a true place. Because that's the singular test of whether something is true or not. If you have a desire for people to know how spiritual you are, it's not coming from a true place. If you have a desire for people to know how much you give, it's not coming from a true place. If you have a desire for people to know how much you love somebody else, it's not coming from a true place. So therefore for Esav, there's one of my favorite quotes, it's in the Talmud, it's also in the Zohar, Istara belaginya kish kish karya, which means that a little, if you have a penny in a box, it makes a lot of noise. Right? If it was filled with thousands of bills, if there was a lot of money in the box, it wouldn't make any noise. But if you have one little coin in a box and you move it around, it makes a lot of noise. An empty person makes a lot of noise. An empty person needs people to know. Somebody who's not coming from a true place, and again, it's not as obvious as I know that this is coming from a false place, and that's why I want everybody to know. But that's the truth. Pinchas, we ask the question, the blessing, Briti Shalom, why is it cut? The only place in the Torah where it's cut, because Pinchas, with all of his desire, he said to the Creator, please, Please, I don't want anybody to know. I want when people read this, say, there's something wrong with Pinchas. Why is he getting a blessing that's cut off? Why is he getting a blessing that's imperfect? There must be something wrong with him. That's how I want it. Because Pinchas's actions came from a true place. And therefore, the one place in the Torah where there's an imperfection, the one place in the Torah where a letter is cut, a blessing is given, and again, objectively, you could say there must be something wrong here. It's when it's perfect, when it's coming from a true place. And Pinchas had no desire for anybody to know what he does, what he did, what his connection is, and what blessings and connection the Creator gave him. And because of that, he merited Briti Shalom. He merited, as Rabbi Yotam Uziel says, to be the angel who will bring about the end of the Gemara Tikkun. And that's an amazing lesson for us on the Shabbat. You want to be connected to the light of the Creator. You want to receive the blessing of healing, of immortality. You have to ask yourself this question. If we're honest with ourselves, we'll see how far we are from this, but there's no two ways about it. How much of your work do you want people to know about? How much of your giving do you need people to know about? How much of your love do you need others to know about? All of those things, giving, spiritual connection, love, that is important for you, to whatever degree it's important to you to show, it's not real. It's not real. And therefore, no blessing of healing and immortality can come to a person. Again, we're not meant to be perfect tomorrow, but we have to make sure, what am I doing now to change that? I realize if it's important for me that somebody know how connected I am, how spiritual I am, how much I give, then it's false. It's like the kiss of Esav to Yaakov. Externally, he was showing thousands of people love. What was it inside, the Kabbalists tell us? It was not only not love, the source of it was hatred. And if you asked Esav, he wouldn't have known that. If you asked him, you put him on a lie detector test, and he said, why are you kissing your brother? Why are you showing everybody your love? And he'll say, I feel it. This is what's true. And the lie detector test would not have known the difference. But we can know simply by asking ourselves that question. What do I need people to know about me? Whatever I need people to know about me, it's not coming from the right place. It's not coming from a true place. There's a funny quote from Simcha B'Nua Persischa, who many of us know had one of his gifts was the gift of jokes. He said that a person's spiritual work, his study, his prayers, should be so concealed that even the angels don't know about it. Even the angels don't know about it. That a person should focus everything that he does that is important to him. Everything that he does that is of a true connection, hide it. Your desire should be for it to be completely hidden. And therefore, again, the reason, this is the second aspect of Pinchas, which is connected to the first, because Pinchas's desire was only BeOr Pnei Melech Chaim. I don't care what people know or don't know, think or don't think. As a matter of fact, I want them to think the Briti Shalom is cut. I want them to think that the blessing, because there must be something wrong with what I've done, and that's why the blessing is cut. Because the singular desire was nothing external, but only true and internal, what's called the true point of the heart. Therefore, the second was true too. He had no desire for anybody to know of his work, of his connection. And therefore, as we said, the first thing we have to ask ourselves if we want to really receive the gift of the Shabbat is, what is my ultimate desire, right? My ultimate desire has to be BeOr Pnei Melech Chaim. But the second part of that has to be to ask ourselves, how much is it important for us, for people to know? And to know that whatever is important for others to know about our connection, our actions of sharing, it is a clear indication that it's a lie. It's a clear indication that those actions do not truly reveal light. They are the kiss of Esav, that externally is so overwhelming with love, but in truth is a complete lie. All aspects of our spiritual connection, all aspects of our spiritual actions that have a desire to be known do not come from truth. Do not come from truth. And therefore we have to look at our lives, at what we do and how we do it, and how important it is for us, for people to know, and realize that has to change. Because whatever I am doing or I do that I need people to know, it is a clear indication that it is a lie. And certainly those type of actions cannot bring a person to a connection to the light of healing and ultimately immortality that Pinchas and Eliyahu Navi have for us on this Shabbat. So those are the two aspects of Eliyahu, of Pinchas, that we need to work on in order to prepare ourselves to receive this light. But as we said in the beginning, what is the ultimate action of Pinchas? The ultimate action of Pinchas is the concept of Nesirut Nefesh. And we've spoken many times about Nesirut Nefesh, but I want to talk about two new understandings regarding it. We know that Nesirut Nefesh is. Nesirut Nefesh is a person in the ultimate level who's willing to give himself completely, even his life, in order to save, to help others. And as we spoke many times, it's important to know that Nesirut Nefesh is not only that ultimate, but it has to be a daily practice. What am I doing that I do not want to do? What am I doing that is uncomfortable for me today? I have to constantly be giving up of myself. And and this is what maybe the new, but the important and deeper understanding from Pinchas. Pinchas, like all the other Israelites at the time in the desert, saw something very negative happening. And they all had a choice to do something about it, which they knew would cause them great discomfort or probably death, or not. All the other Israelites did nothing. Pinchas decided, even if I die, I'm going to do what I can to save others. And we know that he did. What happens at that moment that Pinchas makes that decision and goes ahead with the action, giving up of himself, even though he knows he will probably die? As the Zohar tells us, the two souls of Nadav and Avihu enter him, support him, make his soul that much more elevated, that much stronger. And in that moment, he receives the gift of becoming the main conduit of bringing an end to pain, suffering, and death in our world. Had Pinchas not done that, he would have been a very spiritual person. He was and would have continued to be a very great spiritual leader. But the purpose for which he came into this world would never have happened. He would not have merited in that time the souls of Nadav and Avihu entering him, and he would not have received the merit of becoming the Mevaser HaGeulah, the conduit for the bringing an end to pain, suffering, and death in our world. What does this tell us? This tells us that a person can be a very spiritual person. All of us, we can be very good spiritual people. But unless we are constantly pushing for Nesirut Nefesh, unless we're constantly pushing to give up of ourselves, we will never receive the additional soul, the additional level of soul, the additional support that we need in order to become who we came to this world to become. No amount of spiritual work, no amount of spiritual connection will ever bring us to the purpose for which our soul came into this world, unless we are constantly doing Nesirut Nefesh. That's what we learn from Pinchas. The only reason he received the ability to bring an end to pain, suffering, and death in our world, the only reason he received the souls of Nadav and Avihu as support, the only reason he received, again, becoming immortal, was only because he gave up of himself completely. Now, we're not necessarily meant to, in any given day, give up of ourselves completely, but we have to be clear about one thing. If you look at your day, and you're satisfied because, I spent this many hours praying or connecting, I spent this many hours studying, I had a very spiritual and connected day. And that's fine, but it will never bring you to what you came to this world to be. Unless you found the 3 times today or the 5 times today where you gave up of yourself, because it is only in those moments of Nesirut Nefesh, only in those moments when you give up of yourself, what you don't want to do, what pains you to do, that you receive those sparks of who you are meant to become. Pinchas would have been, again, it's important to realize, a very, very spiritual person, a very, very elevated person, a great leader. He would never have been able to accomplish what he came to this world to accomplish. And his goal, akin to our goal, is to bring about the end of pain, suffering, and death. But you can't have that influence unless you receive the new levels of your soul. And you'll never receive the new levels of your soul unless you are constantly doing Nesirut Nefesh, unless you're constantly giving up of yourself. And therefore what we learn, the most important lesson we learn from Pinchas is that question. I don't care how much I studied today. I don't care how much I connected today. I don't care how many actions of sharing I've done today. If I want to receive the next levels of my soul, to be able to have more influence in this world, what have I given up of myself today? Because only actions of Nesirut Nefesh, only actions of giving up of ourselves, give us the additional levels of our soul, which give us the additional levels of the ability to influence this world. This week, we're preparing for print. Hopefully we'll have for Rosh Hashanah, from the new writings of Rav Ashlag, two very, very important sections, one dealing with world peace and one dealing, those of you and we've shared this before, the concept of one mitzvah, one avirah. Very important writings of Rav Ashlag. And as I was writing the introduction to the book, I started thinking of something that Rav Ashlag says, many of us know, that the individual has to be clear that his or her actions influence many, many other people, even simply by changing how you think, certainly by the actions that you do. But how much influence do you have? Well, it depends. The level of influence, because what we learned from Pinchas is not only that he became a new person, a person who was able to accomplish what he came to this world to accomplish, but he then had, and it goes together, greater influence on this world. So not only if a person is not constantly practicing Nesirut Nefesh, constantly practicing giving up of him or herself, will he never receive the additional levels of his soul and the additional ability to accomplish what he become and accomplish what he came to this world to accomplish. His influence will remain limited, always. Again, you could be the most spiritual person, you could be studying and praying and helping and teaching and sharing. But the amount of influence you will have on individuals and the world will always remain limited. Unless you are giving up of yourself. Constantly, consistently, in the small actions. That's what we learn from Pinchas. Why did Pinchas become Eliyahu, who not only, again, he would have been a nice Pinchas, touched tens, hundreds of thousands of people in his generation. But to be able to influence millions and billions of people throughout history, only for one reason. Because he achieved Nesirut Nefesh.